Salam and welcome, and thank you for joining me in part number 3 of this book, Islam in the Media. And we're looking at how there is a media distortion or Islamophobia against Muslims, which is totally wrong. And that is because there are massive shadow organizations, people in power, the politicians, and mega rich people who want to control the brains of the people. And as what we said in the previous episode, is that in the olden days, people liked to have slavery. In the olden days, if you want to enslave someone, you put their hands and legs in chains, and then you take them wherever you want to, then throw them in a cage, and then you make them work on the cotton field, like how the people from West Africa, the people from our land, West Africa, what are the countries? Algeria, we got Tunisia, we got Mauritania, we got West Africa, we have Western Sahara, with Cote d'Ivoire, we got Nigeria, all of these areas, West Africa, you'll see it on the map. They were taken across the Atlantic Ocean in chains. Many of these are wonderful people, intelligent people. They were leaders of their tribes. Some of them were chiefs of the tribes. Some of them were princes, but they were treated in the most horrible way, and they were taken across the Atlantic Ocean to work on the cotton farms in southern America. The southern states were the slave states. Eventually, then we had the Civil War, where Abraham Lincoln said there must be the abolishment of slavery, and then we have the Civil War where the Confederate States were fighting the Union States, and eventually the Union States then won over, and then we had the United States of America. But for many, many years, the slaves suffered greatly. Many died crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Many died on the ships. Many were whipped and tortured. That was the olden days. In the modern days, the same thing happening. They are whipping and torturing you. They are grabbing you. They're grabbing you. Now they are not grabbing you in Western Africa. Now they are grabbing you all over the world. And the modern slavery is known as intellectual slavery. They have put your brain in a cage. They have put chains around your brain, and they've taken you and they've taken your brain and they've put it in the chain. They are telling you what to see, what to hear, who to love and who to hate. If they tell you, you must love the white man, you will love the white man. Hate the black man, you will hate the black man. You see, that's how they condition our brain. Then they will tell you, you must love the Christians, so you will love the Christians. Hate the Muslims, and you will hate the Muslims. If they tell you, you must love America, you will love America. No matter what crimes America will do, you will love America, because that's how they condition the brain. If they say, and we see today, they say, no, hate China, stay away from China. And people are hating China. They think China is an enemy. They say, no, must hate Russia, must stay away from it. And people are hating Russia. But you know what? I do my own research. I don't put my brain in a cage. Have you said, if you are an American or if you are from one of the Western nations, do you think there's something wrong with Russia and China? If so, why? Who has put your brain in the cage? Do a little bit of research. I did it myself. When I went on to the China, when you study a little bit about China, you'll get a shock of your life. China is the number one world economic power. It's the best power in the world. China is, in fact, number one superpower in the world, not America and not Russia. China is number one, but America will never admit it. The people who control the media will never admit it. The advances in China, the world has never seen. The aircraft carriers, the weaponry, the military of China is what the world has never seen. If China wants to, China can today, China can invade 90% of the world's nations without a single drop. That's how powerful it is. But you know what, the thing that China has got, which America doesn't have, or which Europe doesn't have, which Britain doesn't have. You see, America, Britain, Europe are the colonial invaders. What they do, when they see a weaker country, they invade it, they take the money and they run away. They make themselves rich. They say, no, this is our, like how you have the British, we were a British, what do they call it? Protectorate. I forget the name also. We were under British rule, right? South Africa was under British rule. India was under British rule. These are called the Commonwealth nations. Until we said, we don't want this British rule, right? India said, Britain, you go back home. South Africa said, Britain, you go back home, right? So because they said, we are not your slaves. Why must we work hard? This is our land. This is my land. This is my land. I'm an African. I'm from Africa. I'm born here. I've got 300 years of blood and soil of my ancestors, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. They are in the soil of Africa. I am from Africa. I don't want other people come here to come and take my resources away. I want to help my brothers and sisters in South Africa. Why must another nation come here and take my gold and diamonds away, right? So we threw them away. So in the modern days, what they tend to do now is known as intellectual slavery. They can't go and invade another place and arrest the people. The world won't allow it. So they say the best way to do it, let's get hold of their brain. If we can get hold of the children's brain, we can get hold of the adult's brain, then we got them under control. We can tell them who to love and who to hate, right? So that is just in summary. So now let's start with the book itself. In today's episode number 3, I'll just try and keep it's a fairly long book, alhamdulillah, and I must always alhamdulillah. It's a fairly long book, but let's go step by step in a short, 5 minutes, less than 10 minutes each, so we can go. And mainly it's not for me. I get very tired. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it. Forgive me my sins and shortcomings. I get tired. I like to do it in small doses. So I apologize to you if you find that the sessions are too long. I know some of you can sit for an hour or 2 hours and listen. But please, at this point of time in my age, I just like to do it in small doses, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it, right? So as we said, the best way to remove your brain from the cage, your brain is in a cage, right? Your brain is in a cage. They've put your brain in a cage. What is the best way? What is the only way to give intellectual freedom? What is the best way to release your brain? And I got it on the first page of my book, on the inside cover. On the inside cover, I say the Quran, chapter number 6, verse number 1 to 5 says, Iqra, which means read. Read. God, most merciful, who created you, is telling you to have intellectual freedom, to remove your brain from the cage. God is telling you, read and seek knowledge. Read and seek knowledge. When you're reading, that is known as the power of the pen. That is called read. When you're proclaiming, when you're talking about it, that is known as the power of the media. Right? First verse of the Quran is telling us of the power of the pen and the power of the media. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God most merciful, is telling us, not only warning us, but also telling us of the opportunities. And that is why Muslims then started forming their own alternative media. They started forming like Al Jazeera or alternative TV news stations, because we as Muslims, it is our fundamental duty that if we find that there are huge media mega conglomerations who are promoting falsehood, then it is our duty to raise up alternative media, alternative Islamic medias. That is why we formed the ITV, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then there were like, you have news and print media, and people are doing this to showcase Islam. But you know what is the beauty? In the old days, it depended who was holding the camera, right? The one who was holding the camera was in charge of the media. And as what Malcolm X says in the back of this books, if you are not careful, newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. But in modern times, what's so nice? After so many years when I wrote this book, today we've got social media. So social media has leveled the playing fields. So in some ways, social media is doing a fabulous job, because now we don't have journalists who are paid, embedded journalists who will only talk the voice of their master. Because they want the salary, they will only say what they want to. And even during warfare, they put embedded journalists. These are journalists who the government decides, no, they're going to talk in our favor. If we are going to do something wrong, they're not going to cover that. We're just going to show our side of the story. We're going to show the good side of ourselves, right? Like similarly, they say in history, when America was killing the Native American Apaches, the Sioux Nation and the Comanche Nation, those people were wiped out. When the colonial nations came into Africa and they were killing our people here in Africa, what was after when everyone is dead, the people who are left alone, who wrote the history books? The history books was written by the white man to suit them. It was not written by us, the victims. We victims did not have a voice. Muslims don't have a voice. The black man does not have a voice. The Sioux Nation, the Comanche Nation, the original Native Americans from America don't have a voice. The Australian Aborigines from Australia don't have a voice. But the people who invaded those people, they killed them. They call them savages. They call them terrorists. You know why? Because they're the ones who wrote the history books. They say, yes, we came upon these wild, savage people, and they want to rape and kill our women, and they want to scalp our heads, and we had to defend ourselves, and glory to the motherland. They wrote the history books from their toxic eyes. They then gave that history books to their children to study in the books. And then 99% of the people will study the history books like sheep. Yes, we studied in history. But they don't take the trouble to ask them, was that history correct? And when they make the inquiries, was that history correct, they get a shock of their life that they were lied to about even the history books. The history books are full of lies. It depends who has written the history books. Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.